Hello, my name is Ben Burrell, and this is Bob Dylan Album by Album, a podcast that looks at each Bob Dylan studio recording, funnily enough, album by album. We're going to produce an audio essay or a mini documentary on every single recording, looking at the recording process, also the themes on offer, and the musicality of each record as well. If that sounds like something you might want to listen to, then feel free to check out episode 1. It's on Bob's 26th studio album, Oh Mercy, which is a fascinating record, not only for the music on offer, but also for how it fits into Bob's back catalogue. Have a look at that and let us know your thoughts. If you want to continue the conversation, we're available on Instagram. You can find us at Bob Dylan Podcast, and you can find me on Twitter at Ben Burrell. Thanks for listening and enjoy.
Now we're on. Hello and welcome to Pods Like Us. I'm Martin Quibell, known to my friends as Marv, and with me today, this is a bit of a catch-up in a sense, because we know each other in passing from the local music scene that we've both been involved with for a long. I've been involved with it a lot longer than he has, I think. I would have thought so. Yep,
probably.
So I'm talking with my friend Jim Plumb, known as Jim Bob, and we're talking about, he does 2 shows, but we're going to talk about Ponytail and The Beard. Hey, Jim, thanks for speaking with me, mate.
Hey, no worries, Marv. No worries at all. Yeah, and sorry for trying to cut you off there at the very, very beginning. Good way to start. But yeah, this is it's a new platform on me, and hopefully it's all coming through okay. It's showing very teeny tiny little waves on my end, but I'm assuming you can bring that up in mix, so hopefully it'll be all good. But yeah, anyway.
What happens with Zencastr is it records from your computer and then sends it to me afterwards.
Okay. Cool. That's decent.
We end the conversation, I press stop recording, and then just stay on until it says uploaded, and then I've got the file then.
Yeah, okay, that's cool. I mean, I can see the wave; it's just not very massive, so I might have to come forward a little bit like that to get it on.
I can turn the volume up in the mix.
Do that. It's a shame my mic won't work, but there you go. I've not really had time to mess about with my laptop and connect it up to my mic and that. So
be right.
Well, we'll probably talk about that in a bit anyway. How I use that sort of kit. So anyway. How shall we?
This caught me out because I thought we were talking about a different show. So, but we'll still sort of go along those lines because both of us are from the local scene. Both of us, for anyone's interest, from the Nottinghamshire area. So we're very much from the days of when bands, playing in around Mansfield, Sutton in Ashfield, Kirkby in Ashfield, Uthwaite, and then if we went any further than that, like to Worksop, it was like a tour.
Tour, definitely.
Yeah, Worksop and Retford, they were tours.
And then if you managed to get down Nottingham, you were big time.
Yeah. And the real big time are the people who used to go to the Leopard at Donny.
Oh, wow. That's, that's way out of my league.
Mine too. I didn't get there. Been to Sheffield. Done a couple at Sheffield back in the day.
So, it's weird, isn't it? Because sort of now you look at it and people are playing all over the country and it seems to just be a thing that people do that. And it's like, okay, back in our day, we didn't even leave our town.
Yeah, but back in our day, we were saying, in chats, we were both saying to each other, back in our day, you could make a tour from just the local area, because we used to have 6, 7 pubs in Mansfield alone where you could actually play. And then you had all the social, the youth clubs as well that some of us would go and play as well.
Yeah, and like little pubs in villages and all sorts. They used to be unlucky enough to put us on. So,
oh dear, you reminded me when we played not the Mason's Arms. It was one up the road from there. I can't remember the name of it, but we played there, and they told us off for the bad language in the set because we're doing Rage Against the Machine and stuff like that. And then
Sure.
the guitarist, Paul, he he decided to change the second half of the set when we came back on, and every single song had language in
Brilliant. Well, one of my old ventures, Snail Bomb, which was me
Oh,
and
yeah.
Pete,
Yeah.
was a little bit of an offensive, random project.
I remember
And
Snail Bomb.
well, somehow we got a gig at a school in front of school kids.
Right.
And I've got no idea how that happened, but it was some evening thing, and it must have been friends of friends or something like that. But the teacher, before we played, found out that we had a song that was a little bit controversially called "God's Wife Had an Abortion, It Was Jesus," and she asked us very nicely not to play that song. So we're like, yeah, all right, and we'll just play something worse. But that was the weird sort of stuff that you used to do back then, weren't it? Just anything where you could play in front of people.
I'm now imagining them the next band they'd probably book would be Lawnmower Death
Probably.
for the F off song.
To get Paddy on the phone, get him down there.
I still remember them supporting Saxon. That was brilliant. Because they had Saxon on at the Leisure Centre, when it used to be on Chesterfield Road. Leisure Centre, Mansfield. Yeah, they had Saxon on there, and they were supported by Lawnmower Death. And Saxon's management wouldn't let Lawnmower Death have a stall there to be able to sell their merch.
Okay.
So Lawnmower Death came on, and they said, our first song is dedicated to the management of Saxon for not letting us have a stall here to sell merch. And it was the song F Off.
Brilliant. Oh, I love it. Absolutely love it.
Brilliant. So what's your first memory of a local gig?
Probably the first one that I did, which was, I would have been about 17, I think, at the time. So it would have been early, mid-90s. And it was with a band that I was in called Beyond Redemption, which was some guys from Langworth.
Yeah.
Don't know if you know Sam Lim and Neil Lewis.
Yeah, absolutely no Sam. Yeah.
So it was with those guys. In fact, now I'm lying. I'm completely lying. See, this is how my brain's going these days. This must have been my second one. My first proper memory was playing with just a random bunch of guys that I met that used to practice in South Normanton, now in Pinkston. And we played in South Normanton. We played at a place called the South Normanton Picture Palace.
Wow.
We did about a 4-song set, and I remember absolutely shitting myself all the way through. It was great. But it was all that slow ballady stuff. One of the songs was Unchained Melody. It was that sort of thing. And
all right.
I mean, obviously playing that sort of stuff on bass, when you've sort of more into metal, it's really nerve-wracking because you sort of, every mistake is more amplified, isn't it? Because you sort of, you're going along thinking dum, 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 dum. And if you shit out and hit the wrong note, it's blatant. Whereas if you like just doing riffs and stuff, it's a lot easier to just improvise. So what I remember is being absolutely terrified of messing up. And I remember that there was a Widow Twanky washing line behind us on the stage for some weird reason. So that was my first one. And then my first proper one, as I say, was Beyond Redemption. And that was at the Market Tavern in Sutton. So right on the marketplace. And the fun memory of that one is we turned up for the show. And there'd been a male stripper had been on just before us.
All right, okay.
Was going to be on just for some reason. I think there was a hen party or something happening in there. So when the van pulled up, the hen thought that we were the stripper and started going absolutely bonkers. And then it was like, oh no, it's just a bunch of smelly long hairs. No, we don't want out to do with them. So then by the time that we actually played, all the seats and that, because I don't know if you remember back in those days, there's I think it's where they built a little bit of a stage off to the right hand side.
Right, yeah.
And that's where you used to play, just on the floor. And there was like bench seating all around the back of it. And I remember all that bench seating was completely covered in baby oil. It was like, oh, okay, this is weird.
Right.
Yeah, it was a good show. It was a good laugh, that one was. That's my first prior, because I don't seem to remember going to any real shows before then. I think I may have gone to see my uncle Dennis, who I don't know if you know Dennis Bohm. He's a bass player.
Yep.
Who used to play a lot in the 70s. I must have gone to see him as a kid, but that's definitely locked away up there. No chance of remembering that one.
I'm not going to remember that far back.
No, definitely. But that was pretty much my intro to local music, and then just sort of bounced around between local bands since then, to be fair. But like you were saying earlier, it was a lot different and a lot easier when there were more venues.
Yeah.
When you could just turn up and play. It was one of the things that I found interesting a few years ago when we started Tinseltown Rebellion back up.
Yeah.
The first gig that we did was a bit of a one-off improv thing, because Scott, the drummer, just got a call off on Larkan Ratty on the Saturday afternoon saying, "Do you want to come and support us tonight?"
Right.
And that was how it used to be, innit? You didn't used to book things far out. You just used to turn up and play that night. And I remember that being a bit of this is a bit of a throwback. It used to be ace when you used to do stuff like this. So they were normally the best gigs as well, the ones that you'd not had a chance to prepare for.
Yeah.
You'd have a big one coming up and like work on it. And sometimes it'd fall a bit flat. But then you'd have one that had just come out of nowhere, and you'd have no time to be ready for it, and you just jump up and play it, and it'd be ace.
Yeah, because you'd also, you'd not be ready with like prepared bits and bobs. I mean, bass players, we pretty much sort of know what we're doing, but guitarists, they'll make things up on the spot, won't they? A lot more when they're not prepared.
Definitely. So it's, I don't know, there's a bit of a different sort of vibe on stage, I think, when you're doing that, and it's a bit more fun, I think, because I suppose there's a bit less pressure on you.
Yeah, but then occasionally you'll find that the lead singer will forget words at certain points, and then one of the others has to fill in, because he's like looking, and you can see a look on the singer's face as if to go, when you're playing the instrumental bit and he's looking at you and you're thinking, oh God, he has no idea what the next line is. I'll just quickly move to the mic and I'll start it up, and then he'll tell me when he's ready.
I'll be honest, most of the time, whenever I've been near a mic, it's get him away. Except for the one band that I was frontman for. I mean, I'm front one now as well, but we've not done any live stuff yet. So, it's if it's any sort of melodic singing, no, stop him. Keep that mic away.
So,
Hey, this is Brian with Concerts That Made Us podcast, and you're listening to Pods Like Us, a great show about other great shows.
But yeah, we were talking before we started recording. We were talking about the old websites that we used to do, the chat groups that we used to have back in the day before the old, even before social networking. We had like Mansfield's own, Mansfield Music Scene or whatever it was called, that website, and what's it? Leicester had one called Pinapster, apparently.
Brilliant. I like that. That's good.
Because you remember back in the day we used to this thing where I used to have this sort of like thing going where at one point I started it where we had a band from Mansfield area, or the area Mansfield, Sutton, Kirkby, and that. We used to set it up so that they could go and do a gig in one of these other areas. So we had them from that area, and so I knew people from Worksop and Retford, and then I knew people from the Leicester area as well, Leicestershire. And I used to like do it where we'd have a band from each area, and then they would all play, say, the Mill, Town Mill in Mansfield, and then they go from there. They go and play the Frog and Nightgown at Worksop, and then they go and play one of the pubs in Leicester. And we used to set that up as well, because then the idea behind that was to get the local bands from our area out there and get them a bit more noticed in that area, that they might get more gigs. So that's how I know all these local sites that they had, on the internet.
Got you. Yeah, I do remember that. That was, wow. I think I must have been in between bands at that point, so I never got to take advantage of any of it. But yeah, I do remember that. Yeah, that was a cool one. Gig swapping.
Yeah, because
Oh, sorry.
Because I was going to say, because then you'd have like bands like Ist and Kinargo from Leicester way, and I think I remember before Kasabian were Kasabian, I got them on one of the bills as well, and they ended up playing the Mill under their name that they were before Kasabian, and they played the Frog and Nightgown as well. Before they, like I said, before they were Kasabian. So we know how far we're going back now.
Yeah, that's cool. That is very cool. It's something that we sort of tried to do a little bit when United and Fuzz became a big thing. I don't know if that's something that you've heard of at all. Yep. United and Fuzz.
Yep.
So obviously that's a group of like a stable of bands that do all the sort of stoner doom sort of stuff generally, but it's also quite a bit of variance in there as well. But what we used to do was try and do a bit of gig sharing. Now this was when I was booking gigs at the Bowl, so that helped me a lot, because what we'd do is sort of pick. I mean, nights at the Bowl tended to be 3 bands. So you'd get 2 local bands and then 1 not local band. Yep. Put them on in the middle, get the 2 local bands on either side of them, which would bring plenty of people in for the not local band.
Yep.
And then they could all meet each other and get to know each other and sort of do some gig swapping, which, that was a similar sort of principle. And I think it started working quite well, but again, like everything else, it's another one that got hit by, first of all, venues getting shut down, when the Bowl finished.
Yeah.
And then COVID obviously came along and just put the brakes on pretty much everything, really.
Yeah, I mean, everywhere was shutting down as it was, and then, like you said, COVID, it just made the situation even worse than it would have been otherwise. Yeah.
It did, yeah, it did. I think the only good thing that gave us was people started being able to accept doing stuff online a little bit more. Because, the fun thing I thought with working online is the technology had always been there. Well, not always, obviously, but technology had been there for quite a few years for file sharing and, using stuff like Google Drive and that. And people had just not really bothered using it. And then suddenly something like that comes along and it forces you to use it, and you start to realise how good it is. Doing online collaborations and stuff like that, it was made to look as though it was a new thing, which it wasn't really, but
no.
It's still good to do, though.
I mean, people have been using Skype for nearly 20 years.
Yeah, exactly, yeah. Yeah, that's it. I found quite a lot of that through work as well. I mean, we use Teams quite a lot now, and we never used to. And it's always been there, hasn't it? It's been there for ages, Teams has, and just sort of like that app on your computer that you just never use. And now it's that app on your computer that's always running.
Yeah, but it's the app on the computer now that saves companies from having to have actual premises now, because they can have all their call centre staff from home, which they've now realised after COVID.
That's it. It's good as well for me personally in my line of work, because I do a lot of projects that are based in London, and a lot of the time they'll want to have meetings with you. And before COVID, they were saying, "Okay, come down." Nah, that sounds great. You do like 1 or 2 trips down London. Yeah, it's a good day out. But when it gets a bit more frequent, you start to realise it's a whole day out of your working week that's gone.
Yeah.
So, and no one covers your work for you while you're out on a work trip, because you're not on holiday.
Yeah.
And then the other side of it is how much it costs. I mean, we tend to use a train to go down, and a weekday normal time train ticket is ridiculous. You can be looking at a couple of £100 for a day's worth of travel. It's just bonkers.
It is. Hell of a journey as well from there, because you'd have to catch 2 trains.
I tend to prefer driving down to East Mids Parkway or Nottingham.
Yeah,
and then shooting straight down there. East Mids Parkway is a good one, especially if you happen to have a meeting on the day that download starts.
Wow, that's good planning.
I did that a few years ago. I was on the train coming. I weren't going to download, but I was on the train with a lot of people that were coming up to download.
Yep.
And then when we got to East Mids Parkway, I was like straight off to my car, and everyone all had to wait for the buses.
Yeah.
Which, in hindsight, I should have maybe charged a few quid and shuttled them.
That's a good point. Yeah, you could have given people lifts. Yep. Yeah, £5 each or whatever. Time. Yeah.
Hello to all of you boys next door, mums and dads, newlyweds and nearly deads. Introducing Dangerous Amusements, a brand new podcast where we talk about the music of Elvis Costello. I'm Stu Arrowsmith, and in each episode I'll be joined by a special guest to chat all things Elvis, and I'll be asking them to help me compile the ultimate Elvis Costello playlist.
So let's get to podcast history. So what made you decide to? Because the idea of I'm guessing from Ponytail and the Beard is that as we were saying before we started recording, it's just 2 people having a chat, a gab between you both, and whatever comes to mind, that's what you discuss.
Yeah, basically, I mean, sort of the origins of Ponytail and Beard. Obviously, I did quite a bit of work with Jethro on Knots Rockcast beforehand, which we'll talk about in depth another day. But I was always sort of like just a side character in that show, if you like, just doing my music reviews. Occasionally, I'd do a full show with him or whatever, but that was that. And I kind of always wanted to do a full show of my own, really. Well, not so much of my own, but, do a full show. And Chris, I used to work with Chris's wife, Natalie, and I got to know Chris a bit as well, and we sort of chatted and that, and we realised that we could have a decent conversation. So we said, why not, let's just get a podcast going. He wanted to do it, I wanted to do it, so go on, let's do it. And we sort of had a bit of a discussion back and forth about what we were going to talk about, and could not decide at all. So to start off with, and this sort of ran throughout the whole of the first season that we did, we said, okay, what we'll do each week, I'll choose 5 different subjects, and then you pick a number from 1 to 5 on the day that we go and do it. So on the day that we sat there together in front of a microphone, we won't know what we're talking about until you say that number. And then I'll reveal it, and then we'll talk about it. That way, we're not researched. We're just pulling off of the top of our head. But most importantly, we're just chatting. Yeah. And that's what it became, And it was fun, very much fun doing it that way. We got, I think, you've had a look on Podbean. I think there's about 6 or 8 episodes in that first season. Yeah. There was one that we didn't air because the recording was rubbish. Bear in mind, we started recording in pretty much the middle of COVID, so we were doing it in my garage. Right. Randomly. And it was the middle of the summer, so it's absolutely red hot in my garage, which made things 10 times hotter. And we just couldn't get the audio working properly. So, we lost an episode, but we've always vowed that we'll go back and redo that one at some point, as you do. But we've got a lot of common interests as well, so that sort of helps us to pick our subjects. So, I mean, the thought of okay, there's 5 random subjects that could be anything, pick one.
Yep.
But when you're 2 relatively similar guys that have got similar interests, unless you purposefully pick something stupid out of left field, you're going to have common ground, aren't you? And that's where we find a lot of the subject matter tends to be either paranormal stuff or movies. And if it's paranormal movies, all the better. But yeah, it makes a good chat because we're both mines of useless information as well, especially on these films that we've seen and on legends that we've read about and stuff. So it makes a good time for us anyway. I don't know how interesting it is for people to listen to.
I'm looking forward to people hearing me taking part in a podcast last night when they said, "Oh, we're just talking about James Cameron," and I did absolutely no research whatsoever before the episode.
Yeah, we started doing season 2 of PTB, and we've recorded 2 episodes, but we've not aired them yet. I think the plan is we're going to record a full series and then get it all released properly, because at the minute it's only on Podbean, so we're going to look at releasing it properly. And for the first couple of episodes of season 2, we've actually picked our subject in advance and researched it.
Ooh.
And I tell you what, it's a lot easier. The second episode that we did was I'll reveal it because it's not massively exciting, but we spoke about haunted places.
Yeah.
So we looked up a list of, like, say, the 10 most haunted places, and then just back and forth between each other, sort of telling each other a little bit about those places and that, and the myths and everything that goes with them. And having that bit of research really helped because there's less dead air.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, one of the worst things, especially when you're talking about a movie or a TV series, is, oh yeah, hold on, I think I know that, but it might be on IMDb. Let me just check IMDb, and then you get 3 or 4 minutes of dead air, and it's like, can't do that.
Editing.
Oh well, yeah, you could edit, but we don't. I take my cue on that from a couple of podcasts that I listen to, so I tend to like the organic feel of not bothering to edit.
Yeah. But 3 minutes of dead air, I mean, you could knock that down to about 10 seconds.
Yeah, you could. But I suppose it's having the time in it to not only to record your pod, but then to go back and edit and everything. So
either that or one of you has a guitar to hand while the other one does it, and then you make up a song while you're doing it. While you wait for the other guy to do the research.
There is that definitely. There was an episode that we did where I just picked up a bass and started twanging on it, and I seem to remember getting a bit of a look for doing that.
All right. So how do you record it then? Do you record, remotely, you at your place and Chris at his, or do you do it in person?
We do it in person. We've always done it in person, just as a preference, just because it is great doing things remotely, but it's for a chat like that one where you're feeding off of each other a little bit more. We'll find it better to do it in person. So if there's a week when we can't get to each other, then we'll not bother. It's a nice, comfortable setup, and I think the thing about it is we don't put any pressure on each other as well, which, because we've not got a set schedule for getting episodes out, we tend to be very lazy and, let's do it next week.
Yeah. And you don't have a structure for it either?
Well, no, not at all. It's chat for a bit and then finish.
Yeah, when you think you've
sometimes
said enough.
Sorry.
When you think you've said enough, that's it.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, we normally try and keep it within about an hour. So we'll keep an eye on the clock, and when the clock gets to the hour mark on the little, because we record it on Chris's laptop, and he basically uses a little recorder program. And when the clock gets to roughly an hour, then we know to start winding up, and then we'll bring it to a bit of a close. But we'll generally try and do something stupid to finish it, like cut it off in the middle of an argument or making stupid burping noises or something puerile like that.
You know, it's gone too far when you're doing that.
Correct.
Stop recording and get out the beer.
Exactly.
So it's just you both then? You don't have any guest on the show? Because, you know, I'm still following all these bullet points that I've put down for Notch Rock.
I know. I'm so sorry about that.
It's all right.
Kind of blindsided you. I mean, it's really giving you more of our sort of vibe, hasn't it? Sort of making you be a bit more off the cuff.
It has, yep.
But yeah, so far we've not had any guests. It's all been just us two. Maybe at some point we'll get someone to guest on it. But I mean, I think the problem at the minute is it's a limited audience because it's on Podbean.
Yeah.
And we did a season on Podbean just to see if we enjoyed doing it and how much trouble we'd have doing it, because you don't have to pay on Podbean, obviously. No. Once you start getting onto a more wider broadcast sort of situation and getting yourself on Apple Podcasts and Spotify and all that good stuff, that's where you're more into having to pay for your rights, as you know, obviously.
As I know, yeah.
And that was something that we didn't want to just jump in, pay however much it is, 40 odd quid for a year or whatever, and then do 2 episodes and then say, well, bollocks to this, we're not really having a good time doing it. So, yeah, we've sort of tried to do it slowly but surely. But also, I mean, the plan will be as well, when we do go a bit bigger with it, we can upload all the older episodes.
Yeah.
You know, it also helps a little bit that it's not really a current affairs situation.
Yep. But the most current you get is when one of you mentions what the weather's like.
Basically, yeah. Or, you know, what were you doing this weekend? Oh, I was doing this, you know. But then it doesn't really matter because, I mean, like I say, we've had 2 episodes in the can now for probably a couple of months. No, we started the first one a couple of months ago and then we missed a few weeks. Then we did the next one and then we've not been able to get back together again. So, you know, it's a bit sporadic, but good things and all that, you know.
But if you get 6 in the can, then while you're releasing those 6, you can record another 1 or 2 in that period, hopefully.
Yeah, most likely. I mean, to be honest, I would say that when we do the next one, we'll probably start putting them out from that point. But again, it's what you got to remember is that we're both insanely lazy.
Either that or whenever you're both in the same place at the same time, just record whatever every time you meet up.
Yeah, exactly. There's that as well. So, you know, I mean, we are getting there. We're working on it and we'll get something out. I mean, the latest sort of hard work that we've made it more hard work than it should be, has been sorting out our new intro music. So for the first season, I just recorded a little 30-second blast of me playing guitar, which you probably heard on the bit that you listened to.
Yep.
I've got a friend in Indiana who's got a really good radio voice. So I got him to record as a little bit of a voiceover, clipped it all together, bish bash, it's on.
Yep.
We're recording season 2, episode 1, and Chris said, yeah, I think we need a new intro tune. I was like,
all right.
Oh, really? Okay, I'll make one. So we sat for a bit and I came up with something. It's a little bit more electronic-y, bit of a beat, all's well. Then, you know what would sound really good on this? Some samples. Yeah, it would actually, yeah. Okay, let's download some then. And then we've spent weeks arguing over what samples we want. So,
yeah. For a 20 to 30 second piece of music.
Exactly, yeah. So, I mean, I thought I had it cracked, and then I listened back to it, and it had about 4 Ghostbusters clips, all one after the other, and I was like, no, that can't work. It's not a Ghostbusters podcast.
Need that now. Ghostbusters podcast.
Oh, well, to be fair, Chris could probably do something on that one. Chris is East Midlands Ghostbuster.
Okay.
So he does the cosplaying at the conventions and stuff like that, which is pretty cool. Which is not something that I've actually had a chance to get and see him at yet. But you know, I'm more the hermit of the situation, and Chris is the one who goes out and does stuff.
Well, you need two opposites to make radio shows or podcasts more interesting, don't you?
Yeah, that's true. That's true, and that's part of the angle that we take on the paranormal conversations as well. Because Chris is quite happily a believer, and I'm not. I very stupidly, whatever. I call myself a man of science.
Yeah,
because I'm an engineer. Yeah. As an engineer, you've got to be a man of science, haven't you?
Now, right.
I'm happy to be proven wrong. I'd love to be proven wrong. Unless, you know, I'm in a dark room and shit starts flying around, and then I'll not be very happy at all. But so that's we get a good bit of back and forth on that when we get into something ghosty related, and Chris will recount me some sort of a story about something that happened that's definite proof of the paranormal, and I'll be like, well, surely it could have just been that. Wouldn't it have been wires? Could it have been electrical motors?
Oh dear. That reminds me of being a kid, and I used to get, we had like chicken wire or whatever. It was really thin, and I used to go to a school where you stayed. You lived there basically, or whatever. So we had dorms, rooms, or whatever, you know. And one of the kids, he used to go and use the loo, and as he's going towards the door, I'd pull this wire from my bed that was closest to the door, and the door used to just open, and he used to scare him shitless.
Oh, that's brilliant. That's brilliant. That's almost something I'd do, and something that would scare the shit out of me as well, so I love it. One of the things that I told Chris on one episode is when I worked at Newark, I used to work at RHP Bearings.
Yep.
And I don't know if you're familiar with that plant. It used to be absolutely massive, and a lot of it was quite old. And when I worked on nights, I used to go for a bit of a wander around sometimes. I used to work on maintenance, so you used to get quite a bit of downtime, especially on nights, because there was only a little portion of the factory would be open. Yeah. You know, you'd only have like one bit, there'd be a few machines, so nothing would really break down that often. So it would just be a case of just filling your time, really. And I'd go for a wander around some of the old parts in the dark.
Right.
Not master plans. Wandering around in pitch black at about 2 a.m. Something drops or scurries behind you.
Yeah. That reminds me when I used to do patrols as security at Metal Box. When that was pitch black at night, and that was a big building. That used to take ages.
Which Metal Box was that? Was that the one in Mansfield?
The one in Mansfield, yeah. Because it used to be. Yeah. I think I counted it. There were like 60-something stairs to all the way to the top or whatever, and then so you go all the way around upstairs to the top, check the door at the top, then you come all the way back down again, the same, and
yeah, plenty of time for your imagination to start clicking into overdrive, isn't there, on that one?
That's right. I'm not as healthy now as I was then.
Yeah, me neither at all.
Those steps used to keep me healthy, that's for sure, or fit.
God, I bet. I can remember that. It used to be, it was on the side of St. Peter's Way, weren't it?
Yeah.
Was it? You went round the corner. Yeah. Because when I was at college, there were quite a few lads that were apprentices there that were with us. It was a good stuff.
It was a good place. Really good, bunch of people that worked there.
So did they move that then? Because it got moved over to Oddycroft, didn't it? Or was that just a different part of it?
That was a different part of it, but they moved some of them from the Mansfield one to there. But yeah, there used to be, I think there were 3 in the area. There was that one, and then there was the one you're on about, and then there was another one, I think somewhere between Kirkby and Uthwaite, around there maybe.
Okay. Yeah, I remember it was. I think it was quite a thing to get an apprenticeship there as well, wasn't it? At one point.
Yeah.
But, yeah, it was all good fun. Like I say, I remember the guys that were the 3 or 4 guys in our class at college that were from there. Then everyone else were just mixed.
Hello, everybody. This is Ryan.
This is Avery.
And we are from the Frame by Frame King Crimson podcast. And you are listening to Pods Like Us.
So you know when you're setting up the 5 subjects, yeah? Do you are they mixed? Are they different subjects? Do you pick like one that's paranormal, one that's about a film, one that's about different subjects, or are they normally the same sort of thing?
Honestly, when I did them, they were completely at random. I'm just looking off at my phone now to see if I've still got any lists. I have. I've got a list right here. So this must have been when we first started, and I have got a list of 12. In fact, yeah, we didn't do 5. We had a big list. I think we both had a big list, and each week one of us picked from the other one's list.
Yeah.
So this is the list that I wrote, which I just keep on my phone. I think Chris did the same. So my list was horror movie franchises.
Right.
Bit vague. Batman. Childhood TV shows.
Yeah.
Whodunits.
Yep.
I mean, who don't love the whodunit? Music.
Yep.
Which we did that one. We definitely spoke about music because Chris is also a bass player. So we had some reminisced about times there. Chris knows a whole different sort of group of people to me. He's
all right.
Warsop area. So he's got a whole different sort of musical friend base. Then we've got Disney, which I'm a complete expert on. Which you might not know if you know me, but that's kind of my thing. We've got Doctor Who, which I think we did that one.
You did.
The Alien vs Predator franchise.
Right.
That's a good one. Back to the Future, consoles, socials. So I'm assuming that must have meant social media.
Yeah.
Harry Potter. More of the MCU. We did a full episode on the MCU. But we did it before I'd finished watching all of the MCU. So I'm also tragically slow at watching.
You got to find the time.
More zombies.
Yep.
I know, yeah, innit? And they're long films as well.
They are now.
Definitely. There's a More Zombies one because we had a very long episode about zombies. And then Ghostbusters 2.
Right.
Which apparently warranted its own full episode.
But an overlooked film.
Oh, definitely. It's it was weird, wasn't it? Because I think in terms of it being a sequel, it was a bit of a disappointment when it came out. But then if you watch it as a standalone film, it's a lot better than what it seems. It just doesn't quite match up to the first one. But
I haven't seen the most recent one yet either.
It's good. It's definitely worth checking out. There's a lot of cameos in it, and they treated it with a bit of respect, I think. There's callbacks and cameos, and Paul Rudd's in it, and Paul Rudd's pretty good. So he makes it into a decent film.
They picked the right man to play Ant-Man.
Yeah, definitely. It was very... Mind you, the thing I liked about Ant-Man was that it was a bit different. because it had that different edge to it. They picked a few different comedians that brought a different sort of vibe to that movie, and that made it a good film, I thought. Made it a bit more enjoyable. But I mean, to be fair, in terms of Ghostbusters, a lot of people like to rip on the female reboot effort, which, in my opinion, is a bad film because it's a bad film. Nothing to do with anyone that's in it. It's just not well written, and all the pacing's wrong and everything else. But that's just my opinion. You know, everyone thinks what they think about movies, which is what makes podcasting about movies so easy.
So are you up to date now with the MCU?
No. I've seen as far as Endgame.
Right. I won't ask you about Doctor Strange 2 then.
No, I've not got there yet. I'm still waiting to get round to watching Spider-Man Far From Home. And there's another one after that, isn't there? So
yes, there is. Yep. Which I'm guessing people have already spoiled for you.
Yeah, people being the internet, really, more than else.
Yeah.
You know,
you can't escape it, can you?
No, not at all. I mean, I spend a lot of time on Twitter for sports updates and stuff like that, and sports and music. Best things Twitter are for. And unfortunately, you have to be very wary of all the other stuff that's on there, like all the political rants and all the spoilers.
Yeah.
Although, to be fair, I've not seen very many Stranger Things spoilers yet, and I'm halfway through that now. So, then again, I've had to sort of accelerate that because of everyone at work wants to talk about it, and I'm holding everyone up.
We're only halfway through season 2.
Oh, man.
I know, right?
Such a good show. Such a good show. I said this to someone at work the other day. I find watching that is like reading a Stephen King novel.
Yeah.
Not just the era and not just the supernatural factor of it and all that sort of good stuff, but the pacing of it is perfect. Like the way that an episode is very much like a chapter of a Stephen King book.
Yeah.
It might be a bit slow and a bit stodgy for a bit, which Stephen King books are renowned for, but then at the end of the episode, it'll just go fucking Bob, and you don't want to stop. You want to get on to that next one. And I love it for that. It's so good for that.
It's funny you should say that, because that makes me think about, like, Stand By Me, the film or whatever, where it's got, it's perfectly caught that childhood, the teenage, interested in. It's that era where we know as kids where we were on the cusp of going from there to eventually becoming adults and whatever. And so it's caught that exact bit where you're in between the childhood and the adulthood, so to speak. And then it's the same thing with Stranger Things, that catches the same sort of era.
I think Stand By Me, bear in mind I've not seen that movie in absolutely forever, but my lasting memory of that is the way that it captures that last adventure of your childhood sort of feel. Because we all had one, didn't we? We all had a last adventure, but we didn't know it at the time. No. At the time, you thought it would just go on forever and ever, and you'd be just having fun forever as a kid. But then you've got to have that last adventure, and that's what that is. And it's where, like you said, it's where they all grow up, and it's similar to Stranger Things.
Absolutely, yeah. It's that last adventure for them as well before they get to that time of their life.
Mm. Yeah, that time where you honestly stop having adventures as much, really, and you have to sort of knuckle down and go to work, which sounds a bit grim,
kids, but I'm sorry, kids, but when you become adults, life gets less. Yeah.
There's one word scarier than any monster, and that's mortgage.
Yeah, or work. Work. It's the worst 4-letter word in the world. Work.
In it, just, when when your alarm's going off and oh man, I just don't want to go. And then you have to have that
I want to stay at home and play guitar all the time.
Yeah. There's loads of work I need to do on my guitar. Oh, I've got something that I was working on and I could record it. And I'm like, God.
I still can't, sweet pig.
Sweet pick? Bloody hell, I have enough trouble picking.
Yes. I've got my finger technique, finger style technique. That's decent.
Yeah. Finger technique, slapping, I can blag.
Yeah.
But
hey there, this is Bobby with the Rock Guys Podcast, and you are listening to Marv Smooth on the Pods Like Us podcast. Check him out.
yeah, have you by chance had a chance to hear any of my solo stuff?
A bit, yeah. I've heard a couple bit, yeah. It's cool. It's definitely different to Snail Bomb and Tinseltown Rebellion.
Yeah, some of the metal stuff that I've done. Yeah, it's a bit more chill, isn't it?
Yeah.
I like to think of that as me working with my limitations, though. As a bass player,
yeah.
No one ever taught me how to do things properly on guitar, so a lot of it's very trial and error. Of just like, yeah, okay, I'll try that bit and see how it sounds. That sounds all right. Yeah,
but
that bit
sometimes that's really interesting to do that, though.
Oh yeah, definitely. And I think you figure out how to do some new techniques doing things that way as well, which is always good. But I mean, that said, I've always played guitar. I've always, I've always liked to have an acoustic handy. Like I've got one handy right now.
Yeah.
But it's generally just been for songwriting, which more sort of just being able to like have an idea come into your head and be like, wait a minute.
Shall I put one of mine up behind me?
Yeah.
Have a jam.
Yeah. Anything is getting past that latency issue. That's another thing that I had to explain to a few people during lockdown, when no one was able to practice or rehearse, and you'd get people at work who don't really have any musical knowledge or anything and go, why can't you just do it online? I've seen videos of people playing together online. No, that's not what they're doing online.
No.
That person recorded their bit and then sent it to that person, and then they overdubbed their bit.
Yep.
And they built it up like that. Because the internet's got this thing called latency.
Yes. Yep. Yep. The bane of the internet.
Oh, and it just. Imagine how much money you could make if you could invent zero latency.
I would love that. That would be amazing. I'd love to be able to just, plug in and jam with somebody without that problem.
Yes, absolutely. But I don't think we're quite there yet. It's that's been the one thing that has been shown up a little bit, I think, with everyone being online, is the massive amount of draw on the on bandwidth usage, which, especially at busy times, everyone's working from home on their home connections.
But I mean, that's another thing from the COVID thing, because now everybody's doing this thing of online, and all what we're doing now, chatting online, doing a podcast, and it's sort of grown and put up, in a sense, the big COVID has pushed technology where they've had to actually speed up, essentially, because everybody's doing all this and it's slowing down the internet, essentially, and the internet's having to catch up, and providers are having to go, maybe we ought to have a bit faster, because, I mean, the internet in England is slower than the internet in some other countries.
It is, and I think it's also more expensive, correct me if I'm wrong. It's one of the many things that we get overcharged for in this country. One example of our expensive internet is if you're out and about and you want to get on any Wi-Fi.
Yeah.
Generally, 9 times out of 10, you've got to pay for that. You know, you might be in, I don't know, a Westfield shopping centre or something like that, and you'll see a free Westfield free internet thing will pop up. You try and log onto it, and straight away it'll be, oh yeah, you need to pay £5 for 3 hours on this. And that's something that you don't get in other countries. If you walk around in America, you jump on Wi-Fi and it's generally free wherever you are.
Yeah.
It's very rare that you've got to pay for that, which is, you know. But I mean, maybe one day we'll have a situation where everything's all just available. But I mean, I think that's the is that not the intention of Starlink?
Yes. Yep. I think so. Yep.
That sort of free, fast internet to be global, isn't it? Eventually, when it's all up and running.
Yeah.
Which, for some countries, that'll be absolutely revolutionary. You know, you think about being able to get internet in the middle of nowhere in sort of Africa and places like that. It could be life saving for some people.
Yeah, could be. Yeah, but I remember years ago, even before all this lot, we went to stay at a hotel in down in London, and that hotel. One of the reasons why I looked at it is because it said Wi-Fi available. So went down there, took the laptop with me, and then I went down to reception and I said, "Right, I've put my laptop on, and I can't get on the internet." And the woman said to me, she said, "Oh, that's extra." And I said, "Well, you should say that on your advertising then, that you have to pay for it. You shouldn't say Wi-Fi available if it's only available if you pay for it."
Absolutely. That's not very fair, is it?
No. Which was great. A couple of years later, we went to Skeg, stayed at a hotel in Skegness, and that was free Wi-Fi.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I find a lot of them are nowadays, which is helpful, especially when you want to get a little bit of Netflix on or something like that before you get to bed.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah. Who doesn't want to do that?
No, absolutely.
Despite them putting up the price.
Well, yeah, but, you know, still. But more importantly with Netflix, can you remember when it used to be a postal service?
No, I didn't have Netflix at that point when it was a postal service, but I did have Love Film.
All right, okay. Which, that was similar, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Did they merge? Yeah, I thought they did, yeah. Well,
Love Film was part of Amazon Prime.
Right, okay. Got you.
Or Amazon bought it, that was it, yeah.
When my wife was at uni in Stoke, someone, what was it? It might have been when we moved into our first house or something like that. Someone had used our address for Netflix.
Right.
And we kept getting DVDs posted to us all the time. And to start off with, we'd just get it. Oh, is it something we want to watch? No.
Bung it in.
Okay, bang it back in post. And then eventually, we wrote, obviously before emails, we wrote them a letter saying, "Look, you've got the wrong address. We've told you several times. If you don't stop, you're going to keep your DVDs." I think probably 2 or 3 that didn't get returned, and then they stopped sending them.
Right.
But it was a great concept if you if you had the right address.
We loved it. We did, because we did it with, like I said, Love Film, which ended up being bought out by Amazon. But you know, every so often you watch a DVD, you send it back, you get one back in the post, or however many you've got the deal for. I think we had a deal for 3. We had more time back then. I ain't got time for 1 film a week now. Never mind 3 films in a week.
No, tell me about it. I mean, back when I was a little kid, my dad used to have a mobile video rental business. That was quite fun. So he used to drive around in a van full of videos, full of VHSs.
Oh, yeah.
I
remember those days.
He used to go around twice a week. So you'd pick your film, rent it for like the 3 days or whatever, and then we'd pick it up when we came back.
Yeah. Good times, good times.
Oh,
Those were
man.
times
Yeah,
before Blockbuster
definitely.
was
Did I
in
did.
the UK.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, that was when video shops were normally attached to an off license. So you'd go to your video shop and you'd get all your beer and all your nibbles and all that sort of good stuff all at once.
Like I said, good times. Kids don't know what they're missing nowadays.
No, not all. Not all. Having to queue up for stuff and getting there for whatever film you wanted and they didn't have it.
Now you just go online and you stream the damn thing.
Exactly. But there you go. That's how it is.
If your internet will handle it.
Well, yeah. Before we started this, I did warn you that I'd take you off on a completely random tangent, didn't I?
I'm fine with tangents.
Good. That's another hallmark of Ponytail Beard.
Good.
And incidentally as well, Ponytail Beard's also now an out-of-date name because...
No pony.
No pony. Chris is still the beard, but no pony.
But you're not changing the title, though, are you? Because it's a good title.
Correct. And it'd take more effort to actually conjure up another design and all that sort of stuff.
You don't want to do that.
And like I said before, we're just tragically lazy. It's far easier just to stick with what we've got.
Yeah. It's a bit like. Do you remember Dobby used to have a show called, was it the Kitchen Table Trio? They used to have a show called that, didn't they?
Did you really?
Dobby, Drew, and Jack. They had a show. Those three did. Yeah.
Brilliant.
And that's because they recorded it at the kitchen table.
Yeah, that's cool. It works. I like how podcasting's just become what it has, to be honest with you, with the just the random informal chats. It's almost like you can drop in someone's life for a little bit. It sort of, for me, it sort of fills that hole of chat radio that you used to use when you used to drive a lot. Which, I mean, to be fair, chat radio still exists to an extent, but it's just easier to stick a podcast on it because you know you're going to listen to something you're vaguely interested in rather than listening to Chris Moyles banging on.
Yeah. Least said. But it's sort of it's sort of inevitable, really, isn't it? You know, you've got the streaming of films, the streaming of television. I mean, you can almost see the future with that. You know, where television. I mean, we don't even have a working television area like ours. Everything that we watch is streamed. So
our free sat box only gets used every now and then when there's something on live. So,
but most of what we watch is streamed anyway. You know, I mean, I've got planned for tonight. We've got latest episode of Miss Marvel, and then I think we've got Only Murders in the Building to watch tonight as well. And then finish it all off with good old Rocky IV, I think.
Oh, nice. That's Drago, isn't it?
Yes, it is.
If he
Except
dies,
I need to
he
find.
dies.
Yes, I need to find the re-what's it version of that. There's a director's cut that I need to find of that.
The montage in that film is so fantastic.
They should just call it Rocky IV, the montage.
It just sums up those 80s montages so very well. Such a great montage. The comparison, the technology versus the raw like nature and everything it's so good, so cliched as well. Although I suppose that was back before it was such a trope. But
yes, yep. But then again, I mean, you'd always had montages in the Rocky films before that anyway, just not to that extreme. The training was always a montage.
Yeah, absolutely. It's I think it was that one was just it just hit that little bit harder.
Yes, especially with the very politically incorrect Russians, because they will always cheat and use drugs, whereas the Americans, they won't use any of that or whatever. It's got that sort of connotation to it.
Well, that's an interesting one, isn't it? The way that when you go back now and watch a 80s movie most 80s movies either involved communists or cocaine, or that was about it. Action movies, Saturday night action movies, that was pretty much all there were. It was either cocaine busts or communists. And that's how much the world has changed, because obviously cocaine movies is not really a thing anymore. Communism, it died, so it's not really a thing. And I suppose that's also one of the weird things about Stranger Things, because you've got the Russian element in that because of when it's set.
Okay.
So it probably, and that's something that, because it's not been a thing for so long, I suppose it makes it feel like something new.
This is Dave of Live Life Loud, the Decibelic podcast, and you're listening to
Pods Like Us with Marv.
Yeah, I think my battery's starting to die, so...
Right. So you don't do any editing at all of the show, or do you do a little bit of editing?
So as far as it goes, with Ponytail, we don't really do any editing. Chris deals with it, and he just treats it as a single recorded audio file. Yep. So unless there's something specific that we absolutely hated, which generally there isn't, then we'll just air it as it is. That's something that a couple of the pods that I listen to myself do, and I think it just gives it a bit of a funner vibe, just because you've got that conversational aspect, so you know that whatever's being said is being said, and there's no sort of like cleaning it up or making it perfect or anything. Like I say, it does occasionally leave for a bit of dead air. Sometimes it leaves for saying stuff that's marginally inappropriate, but whatever.
But I like that. I mean, there's a couple of shows that I listen to, like, I don't know if you know of Out of the Blank. That's one podcast where Robbie does that. He just has a chat with somebody and it goes out as is. I mean, he's amazing. He releases an episode every day.
Wow, that's crazy.
And they're anywhere from like just under an hour to about 2.5 hours at a time as well. It's amazing, that sort of level of release.
Wow. Me and Chris have that much trouble getting together for an hour every couple of weeks.
I know, right?
I mean, to be fair, I also took my cue on doing that from Jethro on Nuts Rockcast as well, because he does very, very little editing, which again, it just keeps stuff in, it keeps it honest. That's like one of the things that we discussed and I asked him to do was occasionally he'd like go off to check some levels or go off to the toilet or something when we'd hit the remote conversations phase of life. So he'd just disappear and leave his guests to chat amongst themselves. And sometimes you'd get some great chat in there, just sort of like when you don't think it's really part of it. So you just have a bit of a twatting about.
I've just thought, actually, that a recent episode that I'll listen to of Knots Rockcast, I mean, the recent that I've heard, I mean, it's still a while away from when it was released. Sure. That how the heck did you get your hands on that recording of what was it, the group that had the members of White Snake or whatever in them? Or
oh wow, okay, so obviously we'll go into Knots Rockcast in more detail another day, but I tell you what, doing the reviews on that show has been an absolute pleasure. Jethro just basically started I created an email address which is notsrockcastreviews@gmail.com. And we plug that on the show as a send me your recordings. Well, there was also a few agent type people that would just send stuff to us, like PR agents that would just send us stuff that was in their stable. And the state of some of it is amazing. You get these American bands, like you sort of listen to local stuff and think, that's awesome. That's a really good bit of music, that is. Maybe a little bit rough on the production side of things, but good stuff. And then you'd take one of these ones and it'd be like a professional bit of music that you could tell it had a lot of money spent on it. And that's what this one that was Whitesnake members and stuff like that was sent.
Yeah.
It was just one of the PR agents who just bundled it in, obviously sent it off to loads and loads of different podcasts. And we were lucky enough to be one of them. And I got to listen to it and talk about it and give my humble opinion on this incredible bit of music.
I just remember listening and I thought, God, how the hell did you get that?
I know, yeah. I remember, because what had happened most of the time is I'd go in a bit blind. So I've got I don't even know where it is now. It's been that long since I've done any, but I've got a notebook knocking around somewhere. And what I would do is Jethro had he gave me a spreadsheet that had a good couple of 100 songs on it, all different band names. The ones that were sent in by agents were all flagged. And so that way you'd know which ones were local and which ones weren't. And I tried to sort of vary it up and do like a local one, a not local, a local, a local. And I wouldn't know it, the not local ones, I wouldn't know what they were going to be at all. Because I didn't have the PR release that went with the song. I would just have the email that I'd have the song file on it. Or I'd just have the song file. We saved them in a share folder. So I then, as you've heard on there, made it my sort of thing to go on their socials, find out a little bit about them, jot it down, introduce them, and then play it and then talk about it. Well, on that specific one, I remember just looking at it. I didn't recognise the band name. I'm like, yeah, okay, whatever this is, blah, blah, blah. Wrote it down, jotted it down. Let's find their socials. Yep, okay, off we go. Find the social. Wait a minute. The Who? Really? It was called something Orchestra, wasn't it?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah,
something Orchestra. And I remember just looking at it and being like, because I mean, some of the names as well, you know, some of these bands from overseas that have right names, and you wouldn't think any more of it. And I'd be like, I remember that one. I remember looking at Facebook and being like, really? These want me to talk about this? Oh, well, I mean, I can play it. And then the other part of it was that I always made sure that I listened to it and had my recording on cue so that as soon as I got to the end of the bit of music, I could press record and you'd get my honest reaction.
Yeah.
And I seem to remember with that one, I got to the end of the song and I was like, click. What can I say about that?
I'm trying to look now to find out what the name of the group was. I don't want dead air.
Yeah. It was something. Yeah. Get an IMDb, we'll find it on there. Yeah, it was something Orchestra, I'm sure it was. Absolutely sure it was. And I mean, that was like, there have been some other ones that have been blatantly signed bands that have released stuff that's costed a lot of money to release. And people might not understand, but you can absolutely tell the difference between something that's been done for a lot of money and something that hasn't. Yeah. And I mean, a lot of it's production, just pure and simple, just the after production. Because obviously, what costs money for recording is time, isn't it? It's the time for the place, it's the time for the engineers, and you can really tell the stuff that's been engineered properly, like to a professional level. And it was like just mind blowing. I'd be listening to it thinking, how can I get my stuff to sound like this stuff?
Yeah.
No way, actually. They're legit musicians, so it's never going to sound like that anyway.
I think the same thing. So what other shows do you listen to and enjoy listening to?
So at the minute, I've got 2 shows that are on my regular-ish play roster.
Yep.
The one that I listen to occasionally, a little bit more occasionally, is one called the Console Gaming Crew.
Right.
Now, they talk about console games. The 3 guys from Philadelphia that just chat. But what really grabs me about theirs is that they've been interspersing their episodes with a series called Consoles Through History, which is absolutely fascinating, amazing. If you're into old tech and consoles and stuff, I definitely suggest checking that out. They start off with the brown box, and they've worked forward. They're as far as, I think they've done the NES. I think that's the last one that they did was the NES. So they're working through. Amazing to listen to. They'll tell you sort of how much it cost back then and how much that's worth now, etc., etc. Really, really fascinating stuff. And absolutely, some of the innovations that were created way before the time is unreal with some of that stuff. And then the other one, the one that I make a point of listening to every week, is called "What's Your Spaghetti Policy?"
All right.
And that's it's 2 guys from Tennessee who just chat, and they're funny. They're very, very entertaining to listen to. It's no set subject. They just chat. One of them's just a regular dude. The other one's a bit of a paranoid sort of conspiracy theory nut. And it makes for a really good show. But that one, I think the reason why I cling to that one is because it's very, very regular. They put out every single Friday.
Yep.
Even if one of them can't make it, they'll do one of them will go on his own and just do an Ask Me Anything episode. And they can fill sort of an hour and a half, hour and 40 minutes quite easily.
There you go. You see, I mean, I've got something for you there. A suggestion. You could just do some little like mini review episodes and put them out.
Yeah, I mean there were a few towards when Jethro started struggling to get guests. There were a few episodes where he just put sort of 3 or 4 reviews together on one show and just released that, which, yeah, that was all good. There's a good chance to get to check out the local stuff. I always felt bad for airing more towards the foreign stuff, to be honest. With it being Knots Rockcast, to me, the whole point was that it should be local bands.
Yeah.
And that it should more focus on local bands. But at times, people weren't sending stuff in. I don't know why. I don't know if people weren't listening enough or if people didn't think the stuff was good enough or whatever. But, I mean, I always used to make a point of saying, it doesn't matter what quality it is, the recording that you're sending me in. Send it in and we'll talk about it. Because one of the things that I always try and do, especially when listening to music on that level, is try and pick out the good of it. Try and pick out what's cool and talk about that. Yeah. I mean, there's enough Simon Cowells in the world that will pointlessly slate music. And I think to myself, there's no point in doing that because this is something that not only has someone spent the time to record and make into a song, it's also something they've generally written. Unless it's a cover, and even if it's a cover, it's something that they've spent time adapting and making into their own style.
Yeah.
But when it's something that person's written from scratch, created a piece of music from nothing, you can't go in and slate it. It's ridiculous. So I always found focus on the good stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, there'll always be something good, and you've just reminded me of great cover versions that local bands have done, like Alcohol when they did Love Machine, didn't they? By was it Girls Aloud that did Love Machine or something?
I can remember the time when literally everyone used to do Faith after Limp Bizkit did it.
Yeah, I remember that. But going back to Faith No More, a bit of a tangent there. I remember that when they were really big, the amount of people that used to do cover versions of Faith No More songs was ridiculous.
Absolutely. Tinseltown used to do a couple back in the olden days, back in the late 90s. Yeah,
So
where
can people find the show and get hold of you?
Okay, so Ponytail and the Beard can be found on Podbean. So jump on Podbean and just search Ponytail and Beard podcast. And that's where we are. You'll find the few episodes that we've done. And hopefully in the not too distant future, we'll be a little bit more widespread. If you want to listen to my music, my personal stuff is on Spotify and iTunes and Apple Music and everything like that. All you got to do is just search for Jim Plumb, and there I'll be. My album's called Seasons, so if you're in the mood for a bit of a chill out, then bang that on. If you're in the mood for something a little bit more angry, then at the minute I'm doing something called Trigger the Apocalypse, which you can find on YouTube. And I think that's about everything that I've got going on right now. Link-wise, plug-wise, pluggity-plug. So, yeah. Obviously, if you want to check out some old episodes of Knots Rockcast, then Knots Rockcast podcast is always there. That's a good listen. Plenty of great music on there. I think I come in after about a year's worth, so... So yeah, that's pretty much me, really. In my mind to think of any other links that I've got, but I don't think I've got any. So I've got a YouTube channel as well where I put all my own stuff. I've got some other music on there as well, other than my album, because I do a few oddities. I've done a couple of little covers and a couple of songs that don't really fit on my albums. So they're on my YouTube page, which is Jim Plumb.
Yep. If you want music just to have in the background and just to chill out and relax to, it's a perfect listen for that.
That's what I made it for, really. That was the intention. It's, chuck it on in background and do something.
Yeah. I remember I listened to it the first time and I thought to myself, damn it, Jim, I've been trying to do something that good for years and then you've done it better than I've ever done it.
Cheers, dude. I really appreciate that. It's I don't get a lot of comments on it, so I really appreciate anything that I hear on it. And I really appreciate that, man. Thank you very much.
That's fine. Anyway, I'd better do the sign out now, I think, because your battery's about to go, isn't it, on your laptop?
I'm at 20%. I should have maybe plugged it in, but yeah.
We'll sort it. Anyway, thanks for chatting with me today, mate.
Yeah, no, thanks for having me on, Marv. It's been an absolute pleasure to talk to you and catch up, and some absolutely brilliant memories as well. It's always great remembering some of the old times, especially old Mansfield when it was good.
Yep. Town Mill, Stockwells, Bowling Hand, Mason's Arms. We can reel them off.
Mason's. Oh, man, don't. I miss them all so much.
Anyway, you can find Pods Like Us on any streaming network. And we're on Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok. If you just search for Pods Like Us on any of those, we're there. And you can contact us at podslikeus@gmail.com. Anyway, thank you everyone for listening, and I hope you listen again to another episode of Pods Like Us.